We're here at NYIT, and this is Dr. Nada Anid. She's visiting my Women, Technology, and Art class. We're so excited to have her here because she edited a book on the Internet of Women, and this class takes as its subject experiment and experimentation across art and technology. We've been reading Virginia Woolf, which is she's a very difficult writer, and we've been reading To the Lighthouse, which is partly about the impact that people have on the world. So I thought it was really timely that Dr. Anid was here to discuss her book about the impact women have had and will continue to have on the world. Maybe you could tell us a bit about how you came to write this book and who you are, et cetera.
Absolutely. So engineering and computer science are what I do, and education and making an impact on the world has been my passion and perhaps my calling all my life. So this book was an opportunity to team up with colleagues of mine from the industry. Two of them work at Cisco, which is a tech company. One of them is an NYIT alumna, Lori Cantileno, and she serves on my executive advisory board. So it all came about because I heard an interview by Monique Morrow to the Society of Women Engineers, and I loved what she said, and we connected and we decided to write a book. At the same time, I was approached by a publisher, River Publishers based in Europe, to come up with a book proposal. So that's how it all started. We also coined the phrase, the Internet of Women. It's our own, we own that appellation, so that's why you see a trademark next to it. And in fact, Christine Lagarde, who is the president of a big bank based in Washington, has used it at the Davos Economic Forum. So that's how the idea came about. And we wanted to convey an image of optimism and provide solutions to women across the globe about using technology and using technology as an empowerment tool to change the lives of others and to become independent and to start their own companies or be productive in whatever position or job they were in. So that was our message in the book.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we're able to discuss it. My students are here in the background. Facebook's audience can't really see them, but they are also contributing, and they have read Dr. Anid's chapter about STEM and the changing world for women in terms of the workplace, in terms of the careers women go to, in terms of the fact that ideas need to change from a young age as to how women are steered into different fields and encouraged to take on different kinds of interests. So we're going to go to some questions, some of which are from my students who are on Facebook, and I hope there are lots of people on Facebook interested in this topic. One question that we already have, when discussing the larger workforce, you had said that the hostile work environment, negative stereotypes, and gender bias inhibit the growth of women in the general work setting. What can we do in a campus setting to combat similar issues?
That's a very good question. At NYIT, we have a chapter for the American University Women, and with their help, we are holding workshops. The upcoming workshop will teach females. Anyone is welcome, including male students, of course, the art of negotiation. How do you negotiate for a raise in the workplace? Because as we know, there is a gender gap in the salaries that women earn, not just in engineering or computer science, in any field. There's going to be other workshops in how to react if you find yourself in a hostile environment. What do you say? So we have workshops where you get to act, role play these situations, because oftentimes when you are told something, you become speechless. And so you need to practice what to say and what not to say. And then what actions do you take afterwards? Who do you go to recount the incident that happens? So these are the kinds of things that we're doing with the help of AAUW. But I know that also at NYIT there is a Title IX office. It's the law now in New York State, where anyone can go and speak in a total confidentiality about whatever they encounter that makes them feel uncomfortable. I hope that answered the question of the student.
Thank you.
Can
so
you
much.
nod?
Oh yeah.
Whoever asked it. All right. Okay. Yes.
Excellent. So we have another question from a student who's here with us and posting via Facebook. I understand that there aren't many women in STEM fields, but what is really causing the gender gap? Is it that men that are already in these high STEM positions are not hiring women, or is it something stopping women from going to school for STEM positions?
It's another excellent question. It's a number. It's a numbers game. I mean, and also we have to learn from history. As you know, women were prohibited from going to college initially. It took thousands of years since the beginning of humanity for a woman to be allowed to go to college. In many countries around the world, women or little girls are not allowed to go to school. We know that in Afghanistan, for example. So we've made a lot of progress. So it's a matter of numbers. Women make up half of the population, but not all of them have access to education. So they were allowed to go to college, and then it was even harder to study medicine or to study engineering or to be accepted into these all-male domains. So I don't take it as something negative. It's only a matter of time, and it's a matter of acceptance. There is no difference. But there should be access. There should be, the opportunities should be there. And here at NYIT, we're an example. We're an example of not discriminating against anyone, regardless of gender. And we're pushing young girls to enter our programs. We have. The other day, we partnered with IBM and had an all-day cybersecurity workshop for middle school girls. Our summer camp is a mixed gender camp where girls and boys learn hacking, gaming, computer programming, 3D printing, you name it. We also celebrate engineering, and we bring to campus middle and high school girls every February on a national day, which is called Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day. And you should see our students, boys and girls, who are planning these amazing activities for the girls and their parents. It's a beautiful event that we organize. So we're pushing the envelope, and we're making strides to close that gap. But it's a real gap, and like I said,
I liked how your article dealt with not just bringing women, but what women bring to the field. Because Virginia Woolf, for instance, didn't have a traditional education. She read widely in her father's library. She was prohibited from an education, and yet that's part of why she pushed the envelope as a writer, as an artist, as someone who wanted to be more complex. So I thought that was also a good.
It's awareness. It's opportunity. I mean, hadn't she had the books of her father, she wouldn't have been so literate, and she wouldn't have made a difference like she did. So this is what we're talking about. If you don't have that in the home, we're trying here at NYIT to bring that to you, to offer that to you.
So another question is, did you feel you had to work harder than your male colleagues to get the position you are in now?
I'm smiling. Absolutely. And I said it before, and I always say it. Yes, women in these male-dominated fields, take art. I'm not talking about only engineering. Take music, take art, take the media. Have to work twice as hard and to get to the top. It's a fact. So, ladies, we have to deal with it. That's what it takes. If that's what it takes, we have to do it. Yes. Because, again, because of these differences, women are not always taken seriously. So, you have to fight those a million stereotypes, and you have to show substance. And with that comes a lot of work.
Good. Another question. We covered some of this already, but have you experienced any glass ceiling effect as you were going forward in your education?
Absolutely. When I was in college, say I was part of a team, my male colleagues in the group would say, "Oh, are you sure this is the right answer?" And they would repeat my calculations, when in some cases I would be the first one to have written a code for a very complex problem, pages and pages with no errors. So they would doubt that. But that didn't stop me. Okay, yes, go ahead, check it out, and because it's correct. So it takes education. We have to educate them, and that's how they learn to earn to respect you, and that's what you have to do to earn their respect. As I moved up through that ladder, at one point I organized the National Department Chairs Group in my field, which is chemical engineering. I was the only woman amongst 50 colleagues. But at that point, you don't think about gender anymore. It's all about what you do, and so that's what it takes.
What made you choose engineering?
I must admit that I've always liked writing. I always wanted to be a writer. As a teenager, I wrote poems. I loved poetry, and I wanted to go through that path. I still love art, and one of my daughters is an artist. So, but my family owned a manufacturing business. So I grew up hearing all these big chemistry words that sounded poetic at the same time. So growing up in a business environment made me also love both art and science and engineering. But if you go back in history, Leonardo da Vinci was both. Pascal was both, a mathematician and a writer. In our century and the past century, we divided up these disciplines. But it doesn't mean that our brains can't do both or are not geared towards either the humanities or science. You can be both.
Have you found that to be productive at NYIT?
Well, I am very close to the faculty in the English department because I enjoy the intellectual discussions that we sometimes have about the ethical aspects of technology, the future of robotics, what it does to the workforce, or how right is it to clone a sheep or a human cell. I love that. I love that interaction, and I hope we can do more of that. I've also asked to have a day where we can read poetry. I would enjoy that a lot. And I know that but the engineering students in my school have participated in those poetry reading days. I wish we could do more
and
of that.
And to put in a plug, we're having an event on October 19th in the library called Why I Write.
Oh.
There will be pizza. And we're having a writer on the NYIT, an instructor of writing at NYIT, speak about her recent book. So it's in the library during free hour, October 19th. So send your students and please come on by, everybody. So another question from the audience, not from us. How is NYIT doing compared to other universities in attracting women to study STEM? Is it an upward trend?
The national trend, as I mentioned in my chapter, is not changing much. The growth has been steady in the past years. We are now at 18% nationwide in engineering and computer science enrollment. It's the same, I should say, at NYIT, so we're not below the national average. But this year we have seen an uptick in the number of females in our incoming freshman class, and that's very nice to see. So all the efforts are paying off. Some schools, some universities like Harvard and others have implemented some changes which I wish we could also implement here, taking their model and applying it to us. What it takes is changing the way we teach so that it works both for females and males. So it's a matter of content, but also how you deliver the information. And having more of these programs where you mix boys and girls, but you make engineering accessible and more understandable to girls. It's this notion of I can do it that we need to impart. I mean, we have a Barbie that for over 50 years said, if you push the button, math is hard. It's wrong to say that. If you're a minority or any underrepresented group, including women, it shouldn't be like that. Science should be gender neutral.
Mm. Okay, so what can educators at the early childhood level do to encourage more girls to become interested in STEM fields?
We have to break those stereotypes. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go, toy stores are dying. I was going to give the example of Toys R Us, unfortunately. Yeah. But if you recall, you had those pink and purple alleys, and then you had the black alleys for boys filled with cars. I mean, as a girl, I liked those toys. Mm-hmm. The train, the cars, that you can control on a track. I like the Legos, plus doll. I mean, you have to give girls access to educational toys and toys that are more active. Traditionally, girls' toys were passive. It was all about nurturing and being prepared to your role as mother in the future. At maximum, you would become a teacher or a nurse. But this is what the toy industry did. So parents and society has to work towards breaking those stereotypes and giving girls access, also video games. Mm-hmm. Those give a tremendous advantage to boys in terms of speed, in terms of other attributes that girls will lack if they don't play with those games.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do you have any advice to female students at NYIT, even those outside of STEM programs, to combat the pay gap and other disadvantages they might face in their future workplaces?
Absolutely. Let's use this forum as the beginning of a discussion and a request to all our female community as to what their needs are, and then we will tailor workshops based on those needs. So we will announce the workshop I talked about regarding the wage gap and negotiation skills. And then if there are other needs, I know my own students came to me and said, we need a workshop on speaking up, being more assertive. Let's survey the students, the female population, and ask what is it that you would like us to discuss, and then we can plan those. I would welcome that, and this would be a great action item based on today.
Do you believe that women with STEM backgrounds have received more recognition in the past 2 decades? If so, how can we increase this recognition?
Well, it takes more than just you and I talking. There is behind this are the National Academy of Engineering, changing the image of engineering and science. We call it changing the face of engineering. Part of it is more role models. Like, I'm not a traditional engineer. When people talk to me and I say I'm an engineer, they tell me, oh, you don't look like one. Well, there is not one way you're supposed to look if you're this or that. Yeah. So we want to change that. So it's a national initiative. And the National Science Foundation is working with Hollywood to change also the image of the engineer. So you still see the nerds, you still see, what's the name of the show? Please help me.
Big Bang Theory.
Yes, the Big Bang Theory. And young children. It's very stereotypical. So we want to change that. And we're seeing more women take on major roles in movies. I'm not so much into popular culture, but
there's more attention to women science and math pioneers.
Yes. So it takes the popular culture, it takes educating parents and breaking those stereotypes. It takes also national initiatives like computer science for all. Computer science, this is the digital age. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, whatever, if you're a business major or whatever your major is, or a nurse. My daughter was sick. I basically lived in a hospital for the past year. You have to be proficient in using technology. There is no escape. So it touches us all, and it's going to permeate every field. So, and I wish that at NYIT, coding, just like we're teaching it under the Computer Science for All mayors and national initiatives, I wish that we could teach coding for all majors, because it's going to become a necessity, a skill. Just like you write, you may have to write some lines of code. And it's just another language, in my view. It's just a language. It doesn't require any math. It's just like you're giving directions. Do this, do that, go left, go right. But it's a way of writing these directions. It's logic in a certain way. It's a syntax.
Yeah, a colleague of mine actually thought that that's one of the places where grammar absolutely matters.
Yes.
That's sort of a thread that if you make mistakes, your code won't run, and so you become more attentive to detail, just as you would reading a passage or interpreting a moment. You are attentive.
Absolutely.
So how do you suggest we promote the study of STEM subjects in underprivileged neighborhoods where access to proper education for such studies is more difficult?
Well, we are a not-for-profit institution. I mean, in NYIT, we're not here to make any profit, and our resources are limited. But we're doing these things, and what makes it possible is to partnering with the big corporations, IBM. We're also talking to the banks because also they need a workforce that is digitally literate. So it's through these partnerships, the Harlem Project, for example, grants, that we can now go into these neighborhoods, teach the teachers, but also have programs for the students in these underprivileged neighborhoods. We also have created an Entrepreneurship and Technology Innovation Center, which requires us to do this. So, so there are ways to do it, but we can't do it alone.
Thanks. Another one of my students has a question. What are your thoughts on the belief that women tend to follow career paths outside of STEM fields due to inherent traits common to women? Is it true that it is statistically relevant enough to speaking about women in STEM fields? Do you still find this to be the case, that women pursue things that aren't science related often? Perhaps this is something they've internalized, that they are more inclined to other fields.
Yeah, I can't speak to the scientific accuracy of this statement, what's innate and what's acquired. But everyone has to follow their passion. I mean, you can't force a boy to do things that he's not passionate about, and vice versa. But my approach is to put everything on the table and not treat them as separate. And so once everything you do is gender neutral, once the approach, the tools you give them is gender neutral, including the teachers. If you look at our teachers, there are many studies done. They will ask the boys, when they ask a question in class, the boys tend to they are the risk takers. They have the answer. They are not afraid. Girls are more reserved. They have to think before speaking. They are afraid, oh, what will everyone think about me? So it takes educating the teachers in the classrooms, having an awareness campaign for parents. It takes talking to the toy companies, the media. It's a whole holistic approach that we have to take, and then everyone will follow their own passion. I'm not saying that math is for all or engineering is for all, not at all.
What are your views on the engineering clubs at NYIT, such as the National Society of Black Engineers? Well, it asks if you think they're important, but I assume that you do, and maybe
absolutely.
How have you seen them grow?
I do so much that I started a dean's student council, where I spend time with the club officers. I meet with them bi-weekly to hear what their initiatives are, to hear what their concerns are, and to ask them how I can support them further. In fact, I just came from a meeting where I was vouching for more space for our students and our students' clubs to sit, hang out, talk, study in groups, or work on projects. NSBE, which is the society, the National Society for Black Engineers, has been very active in mentoring high school students. They go to the schools and they have programs in those schools. So I'm a proponent not just of NSBE, but of every professional club in my school.
This is from the audience. Women don't see enough positive female role models. Oh, it's more of a comment from the audience, and that's part of the problem, that there aren't enough positive women role models in I guess, coming out of STEM fields.
All right. Well, I'm an engineer. By definition, we solve problems. So to me, there is no problem that there is no solution for. So I'm a seeker of solutions. The reason why there aren't enough women role models is, again, a historical reason. There aren't enough women in that pipeline. So what we have to do is start earlier and earlier, so that we can direct these young girls into these paths which are traditionally held by men.
One thing we were talking about with the Lighthouse is that it confronts two generations of women, one who's primarily raising children and one who's not raising children, who's primarily an artist. How do you feel the issue of raising children factors into that?
Well, it's not an engineering or issue. It's a woman issue. But from my own perspective, I was a Ph.D. student when I had when I was bearing my second child, perhaps the first one in my school at the University of Michigan, to do so with bravery. I went to the lab. I would be up in the lab till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then I passed all my tests, and then I had my child. So I'm an example, and it can be done. It can be done.
Okay. When it comes to entrepreneurship, you state that male entrepreneurs far outnumber female ones. What do you think is the main reason for that? Or even, well, we've said how we can change that, but how would you respond?
It's the numbers. We go back. Yes. So, but it's staggering. I mean, only the statistics are there. And thank you for picking that up. Only 5% of the U.S. patents that have gone to market have a woman's name on them. I was talking to a venture capitalist. These are individuals who invest in startups. In the U.S., only 2% of that capital supports women companies. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and that's the exciting part. And everyone is invited to be part of it.
Well, looks like we're about out of questions. I want to thank you so much. This has been so inspiring in terms of the fact that we have been dwelling more in the fictional world, and now we get to return to the real world and learning more about the workplace and the fact that these careers and the choices students make have real bearing on the world. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.